Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating one today. Every single day, you have these top tier executives armed with, you know, Ivy League degrees and just massive consulting budgets, and they launch these theoretically flawless corporate strategies.
Yeah, the perfectly polished slide decks.
Right. They sit in these polished boardrooms, roll out the decks with the perfect mission statements, and then
Almost immediately, the strategies just fail.
exactly. They fail. And it's not because the plan was badly written or the market research was wrong. It's because they essentially tried to plant a saltwater fish in a freshwater lake.
It really is the great mystery of modern business execution. I mean, we are so conditioned to view a company as a machine.
Yes, a machine.
You engineer a blueprint, you plug in the capital, you press start, and you expect output. And when it breaks down, the immediate instinct is to look for a broken gear.
Okay, let's unpack this because when a brilliant strategy falls flat, we usually blame those specific gears.
We absolutely do.
We say, oh, it was bad leadership or a lack of operational discipline. Or, my personal favorite excuse, uh, the employees just resisted the change.
Yeah, the classic scapegoat.
Right. But what if those aren't the root causes at all? What if they are just the inevitable symptoms of a much deeper, almost biological incompatibility?
And that brings us to our source material for today's deep dive. We're exploring the prologue to a truly groundbreaking book on strategic management.
It's a dense one, but so good.
It really is. The mission for us today is to fundamentally change your perspective as a listener. We are taking corporate planning entirely out of the engineering department and dropping it squarely into the realm of biological evolution.
So I want you to pause for a second and just picture your own workplace. When you walk through those doors or, log on to your company server, are you just looking at a collection of departments and budgets and org charts?
Most people would say yes.
Right. But are you really? Or are you looking at a living, breathing organism that is actively struggling to survive in its ecosystem?
Visualizing it as an organism changes everything. I mean, it leads directly to the central premise of today's deep dive. The source states very clearly, there is no correct strategy in an incorrect business DNA.
Wow. Okay, so
You can have a fantastic product, incredible branding, a booming target market, but
yeah.
if your internal culture is completely rigid, or if your decision-making is painfully slow,
Or your cash flow is vulnerable.
exactly, if your cash flow is vulnerable, your strategy is doomed before it even launches.
It's like putting high-performance Formula One tires on a tractor.
Yes, perfect analogy.
Like the tires, the strategy, right? They're great. They're objectively perfect for racing, but the machine, the DNA, is entirely wrong for that specific race.
What's fascinating here is how this invalidates the traditional questions leadership teams usually ask themselves.
Oh, for sure.
The default question has always been, how do we improve the company? And that usually triggers, a massive waves of efficiency drives.
Or a new sales training program.
Right, or adopting whatever new enterprise software is trending on LinkedIn that week. But those actions are mechanical fixes for a biological problem.
Which means the new directive question for leadership has to be completely different. It becomes, how do we keep the organization evolutionarily compatible with an environment that is constantly mutating?
Because past survival doesn't guarantee future survival.
Exactly. The source points out that a tight organizational structure that gave you incredible control a decade ago, it can slowly calcify into just suffocating bureaucracy today.
Yeah, a strong, decisive founder can mutate into a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Prudence devolves into fatal slowness.
So to map all of this out, our source introduces a new framework, the CEO framework, the evolutionary system of organizational strategic intelligence.
It's a mouthful,
Yeah.
but the concept is brilliant. The objective isn't to throw away everything we know about strategy. It's to integrate our traditional tools into a dynamic biological architecture.
But to do that, we have to start outside the company. We have to start with the ecosystem.
Right, because if survival depends on adapting to the environment, we first need to understand what that environment actually looks like.
So we know the ecosystem's gravity is crushing the company. But to understand why one company survives that pressure while another gets squashed, we need to understand the battlefield.
And the first two components of the Sekaleo system focus on exactly that. They are the territorial, evolutionary pestle, and competitive intelligence.
Okay.
The critical shift in this framework is that the primary unit of analysis is no longer your organization.
It's not.
No. The primary unit of analysis is the ecosystem itself, the specific territory you inhabit.
That could be a country, a specific city, a global logistics corridor, or even like a regional mining zone.
Exactly. And every single territory has its own unique political, economic, and social weather systems.
The source actually spends a considerable amount of time highlighting Latin America as a prime example of a highly complex, critical ecosystem.
Yes, it is an incredible testing ground for organizational DNA. It combines really dynamic markets and vast natural resources with just brutal evolutionary pressures.
We're talking political volatility, massive informal economies, sudden inflation spikes, institutional fragility.
It's a harsh environment.
Wait, Pestle and Porter's five forces, aren't these just the exact same tools taught in literally every Business 101 class in the world? Like political, economic, social. This sounds like standard textbook stuff.
It does sound like it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because we aren't using them the normal way, are we?
Not at all. We aren't just plotting data points on a chart. Think about the evolutionary twist being applied here. A traditional pestle analysis usually just describes external factors,
Right, it asks, what is the current inflation rate?
or who is winning the election.
Hmm.
But the evolutionary pestle interprets those exact same factors as direct physical pressures on the corporate organism.
Ah, so in this framework, inflation isn't just a macroeconomic data point.
No, it is a crushing pressure that restricts the organism's oxygen. It actively squeezes your inventory. It forces constant salary renegotiations just to keep your talent from starving. And it dictates the aggressive posture you have to take with your suppliers.
Wow, yeah. An election isn't just a news event, it's a shock to the ecosystem that instantly alters investment rules.
Exactly. And this redefines how we look at competitive intelligence, too. You cannot evaluate a market simply by looking at consumer demand.
Because demand might be incredibly high, right? But if the ecosystem is dominated by a massive informal economy,
Or ruthless distributors who control all the access.
yeah, your margins will just be devoured.
You cannot confuse a market's attractiveness with its strategic viability. A market might look beautiful on a spreadsheet, but if your company lacks the specific DNA to survive a brutal price war in that specific territory, you face extinction.
Okay, so we've established the intense shifting pressures of the environment, the brutal ecosystem. How do we actually measure the organism's capacity to survive it?
We have to look inward. We look at the DNA.
The source identifies 10 vital functions of organizational DNA, and we are shifting entirely away from viewing a company as a collection of functional departments, HR, marketing, finance.
Right, we're viewing it as a living entity with biological imperatives.
Those 10 functions are identity, adaptation, memory, coordination, defense, reproduction, nutrition, communication, regeneration, and evolution.
The biological terminology really forces you to think differently, doesn't it?
It really does. Let's dig into nutrition, for example. In a corporate setting, nutrition sounds like, I don't know, stocking the break room with healthy snacks or something.
Kombucha on tap.
Right. But here, nutrition represents liquidity. It is your profit margins, your working capital. It is the literal financial energy required to keep the organism moving.
And if the nutrition fails, the organism starves, no matter how brilliant its future strategy is.
Exactly. Or consider memory. Traditional metrics view memory as server space or data archives.
But this framework defines memory as institutional learning. It is the deep-seated ability of the organization to internalize its past successes and failures so it doesn't repeatedly touch the same hot stove.
And traditional audits completely miss these vital signs. You could have a company with 30 years of accumulated market experience, but zero institutional memory, because the second a key executive retires, all that knowledge leaves the building.
The organism basically gets amnesia.
Let's look at reproduction. In biology, it's about propagating the species. In business, it's the ability to grow and expand your territory, opening new branches, entering new countries.
But doing so without deforming the original organism. And this is where we see why companies suddenly collapse when things look great on paper.
Oh, yes. You might look at a company expanding wildly and think, wow, high reproduction, they are thriving.
But if you examine their DNA, you realize their central nervous system hasn't evolved to handle that size. They are achieving massive reproduction at the cost of total failure in coordination.
Right. They're losing operational control. The communication lines stretch, internal systems break, and the organism essentially suffers a stroke.
Or, they might be highly profitable right now, plenty of nutrition, but they have absolutely no succession plan and their R&D department is totally dead.
Meaning they have zero capacity for evolution.
Exactly. They are rich today, but biologically doomed tomorrow.
So we have the environment's pressure on one side and the 10 vital functions of the company's DNA on the other. What happens when there is a gap between the two?
That brings us to the core integrator of the entire CIEO system, evolutionary compatibility.
Evolutionary compatibility.
Yes, it's the measurement of the absolute distance between what the ecosystem demands and what your organizational DNA can actually execute.
Okay.
When that distance is small, the organism is healthy and thriving. When that distance widens, the company becomes vulnerable.
So what does this all mean? Like, how does a company actually fix this gap once they realize they're incompatible?
This is where the evolutionary SWOT and the strategic mutation engine come in.
Mutation engine, I love that term.
It's powerful. In this framework, corporate projects aren't just isolated tasks on a whiteboard anymore. They are forced organizational mutations.
Meaning, if you are weak, you have to mutate to survive. The text lists 5 types of mutations, right? Defensive, adaptive, offensive, regenerative, and evolutionary.
Exactly. Defensive is about protecting your cash and reputation, building a harder shell.
Adaptive is adjusting to new conditions, regulating your internal temperature.
Offensive is capturing opportunities, growing new claws.
Regenerative is fixing internal rot.
And evolutionary is creating entirely new capabilities that didn't exist in your DNA before. The key is priority. If the environment suddenly demands speed, the company must force a mutation in its technology and decision-making structure.
But to survive, these mutations can't just be like an annual retreat exercise. You can't just go to a cabin once a year and decide to mutate.
No, you definitely can't. And that leads us to continuous evolutionary monitoring. In volatile environments, a yearly review is a death sentence.
Because the ecosystem changes way too fast.
Right. You need early signals and constant scenario updates. You have to monitor continuously. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source brings up a really fascinating view on artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah. AI is perfect for this.
It is incredible for detecting those weak signals, simulating scenarios, and actually suggesting priority mutations based on the data.
But the text explicitly warns that AI does not replace human judgment.
Right. It can process the data, but the responsibility to interpret that data and actually suffer the consequences of a mutation, that remains a deeply human burden. AI doesn't assume risk. Humans do.
It's a tool for intelligence, not a replacement for leadership.
Exactly.
I really want to bring up the source's fascinating detour into Latin American family businesses. It's such a specific application of this framework.
It is. Family-run businesses are unique organisms. They have amazing, hard-to-replicate DNA, deep reputation, fierce loyalty, a true long-term vision.
But they also have severe structural vulnerabilities, right?
Yes. Massive founder dependence, intense family conflicts bleeding into operations.
When the founder organ fails, the whole organism is at risk. And consultants usually tell them to professionalize, which just means adding a bunch of corporate bureaucracy.
Which kills their entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
It's terrible advice from an evolutionary standpoint.
Right. The source argues that professionalizing isn't about killing the spirit. It's about converting intuition into a system. It's translating personal leadership into organizational continuity.
You aggressively mutate the fragile parts, like centralized decision-making, while fiercely preserving the community ties that give you an advantage.
It's brilliant. Well, to wrap up this deep dive, let's summarize this massive paradigm shift. In predictable markets, a good plan might be enough. But in changing volatile ecosystems, the ultimate competitive advantage isn't a strategy document.
No, it's not.
It's building an organization capable of evolving. It's not the biggest or the oldest that survives. It is the most adaptable.
This raises an important question for you, the listener.
Oh, I like this.
Look at the biggest strategic project sitting on your desk right now, the one taking up all your budgets and meetings. Is it actually helping your organization mutate to match the crushing pressures of your specific environment? Or are you just polishing the tires on a tractor?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy thought to leave on. A massive thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the old models, keep learning about your ecosystem, and whatever you do, keep evolving. Catch you next time.